Welcome, everybody, to Boxing Scene Today inside the ProBox TV studios. That's right, a huge UK fight this weekend. Everyone hyped about it. It's been building for months and months and months, and why shouldn't we be looking forward to it? Jimmy Smith in studio alongside the champs, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, also Lance Pugmire of Boxing Scene joining us as well. Gentlemen, why shouldn't we be excited about this fight, right? The WBO, WBC super middleweight titles.
Jimmy, that's the fathers, dude. That's their fathers. What are we doing over here?
Dude, it feels like yesterday, 1993, right?
Yeah, but you know what? In reality, it was 32 years ago. That's the unification is the fathers. The sons involves no world championship.
Okay,
but
all right.
The names.
You understand the confusion, right?
Yeah, Chris, they got it in a stadium. It makes you think it's that big of a deal because it's in a huge stadium, Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I mean, it is a major deal in the UK, but that's how they do it over there.
Listen, in boxing, three things sell, and these three things always sell. Number one, the legacy, right? So you got the fathers.
Nepotism.
You got that. Nepotism sells. Controversy sells. You know, we had the drug infraction from 2 years ago that pushed this fight back.
Egg on the head?
2.5 years. Right. And then beef sells. And we got egg on the face, you know, at the press conference. These guys, so between their father's bad blood that they had from 32 years ago, like you said, champ, the controversy of the drug testing, drug failure 2.5 years ago, and then the beef, which is actually real. It's not just their fathers anymore. As you smash an egg on your face, and that beef is real. You know, the fight sells.
Right, but it's been kind of, Paulie, a slow build kind of fight. Like, when this fight, good. But you're right, to Chris's point, it's now huge. It's a mega fight, and as you pointed out, this is not a title unification.
No.
This is not a historic fight.
I dare to say that neither of these guys will ever win a major world title, to be honest with you. But the strength of the last names of these guys, it's incredible. The strength of the UK boxing scene is just insane, and it's impressive. It's highly impressive that boxing can be so big in a country in a place like this. It's honestly, it's the gateway to heaven for all us boxers and boxing fans. You know, Chris, champ, you fought in the UK. Yep. You know, I've been fighting in the UK since the amateurs, and you know what? They loved me extra because I never won over there. You know, I kept losing to their guys.
I was gonna say I lost there too.
I kept losing to their guys. Even in the amateurs, I went. Actually, no. In 1998, I did win a fight over in Liverpool, but then I lost to London on the USA national team in 2000, and then I lost to their pro stars Hatton and Conor and Eggington as well. I had one fight there where I didn't fight a Brit and I won. You know, like I got to enjoy the UK boxing scene in a lot of ways, and the fanfare and all that stuff. And I saw it for myself. You know, there's a lot of fanfare, especially for big names, big fights. And these two guys over in the UK are big names, big fights, regardless of the fact that, like I said, as a matter of fact, the fact that they will probably never be world champions and it's still this big is a testament to how big of boxing fans the UK fans are. Well, it is really impressive.
Let's not. I mean, we should give some credit to the fighters themselves. They're selling it. They're doing a great job.
Yeah.
And you know,
like you said, beef sells, controversy sells, and nepotism sells.
But Chris Eubank Jr. is a good talker, man. He gets up there and he's going, and Benn, he's so visceral in the way that it comes across with his anger. It definitely seems real. It seems genuine. Whether Chris Eubank doesn't like Benn, I'm not sure. Benn does not like Chris Eubank, and that seems real to me. I'm not sure if it's both ways, but Benn certainly doesn't like.
Always very angry, right?
Yes.
So, I think that's also one of the ways he charges himself up to motivate himself. Some people need that, you know. Some people they'll be, you know, they're able to be calmer, sort of like Eubank Jr. Eubank is sort of more calm, has a calmer demeanor, speaks eloquently. I guess it's a little bit like the fathers, right? Because Nigel was a very emotionally charged fighter and used that to charge himself up. And Conor kind of uses the same dimensions. You know, some people say, "Oh, it's not good to be highly emotional," but in reality, it can help you. It can help.
So I
felt like it helped me in my career. I feel like it helps Conor too.
I think George Groves said that he went out there and he's like, well, you know, if you compare the lead up to the fight, Chris Eubank Jr. has won every interaction. He's been cool. He's been calm. He's been collected. He's been setting things up. I don't necessarily agree.
But if that's what you think wins it for you.
Depends.
It depends on the person.
Like you said, depends. Like is that animosity? That animosity.
It's not so black and white.
It can be. Right, it can be a hindrance because you can fight emotional, and then boxing is not a fight. That's not a sport that should be contested emotionally. But listen, it can help because emotion can drive the aggression, and especially for a younger guy like Benn.
So what I have to ask Lance Pugmire from Boxing Scene, to you, we have the elements here. We have the legacy of the fathers, we have the controversy of the drug test, and we have the beef. beef. To you, what is kind of driving fan interest in this fight from your perspective?
No, I think Paulie made a great point, and the enthusiasm that you see over in the UK among the fight fans, they are fervent followers of the sport. And I can personally say, having covered the sport for about 20 years now, the greatest event I've ever attended was the 2017 Anthony Joshua versus Vladimir Klitschko fight at Wembley Stadium. And the passion that the fans have for the sport and the depth of how sincerely they follow this is really driving this train, because they know everything, all the ins and outs about the legacy. They know everything about the egg dispute with
egg gate.
Yes, exactly. And they love it. It's high drama. It's like a soap opera over there, and that's why you're seeing the enthusiasm that you're seeing from the fans.
And Lance, there's even the drama with the fathers. You've got Conor Benn and Nigel Benn, who seem to be so close. They're doing everything together. They're basically on a media tour together. And then you got Chris Eubank Sr., who's saying his son is a disgrace. I'm not going to be in his corner. So you've got this high drama,
and it's
even at a
building up to
personal
fight night
level.
where Chris comes out from behind the stage.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Senior.
Again, but calculated.
Very calculated.
Emotional.
Eubanks are very
Benn,
calculated.
You see, there it goes again.
This is almost WWE, right? Like, this is what Vince McMahon would do. Like, there's a
Well, what did Shane Paul yesterday at work?
A work.
A little bit of a work, right?
That's a pro wrestling expression. All right, let's leave all of that aside. I have two guys who were two of the best in their primes. Talk about the tactics. We know about the beef. We know about the egg. We know about Chris. Once the bell rings, as Larry Holmes said, all the BS is done. You can't call the cops, right? It's this idea of that's all outside. In the ring, how does this fight go down? How do you see it?
So I think even before we talk tactics and what's going to happen between the ropes, we got to talk about what happened at the negotiating table. And because where this fight is being contested, Chris Eubank, a large portion of his highest level career was at 168, super middleweight. This fight's being contested at 160. Benn, his highest level fights have been at 147. I believe he's still campaigning as a welterweight, although his last two fights were in the 50s, closer to 54. So you've got these guys meeting where Benn is technically going up 2 weight classes. Chris Eubank is fighting in what is considered his more comfortable weight, but now he's 35. So is it still a comfortable weight? That's yet to be seen.
Cuts get tougher.
Then there's a rehydration clause, right? Plus 10 pounds for a guy who is a big 60-pounder. He's a good-sized 68-pounder, to be honest, Chris Eubank Jr. Now he's fighting at 160. Very, very big for middleweight. So that rehydration clause, that plays on your mind a little bit. Then I just read this morning, the ring is going to be smaller than 18 feet. That's a small ring.
That's going to look even smaller in a huge stadium like that.
That's a small ring. So Grove said that Chris Eubank Jr. was winning the battles of the lead up. Well, guess who won the battles at the negotiating table? To me, it looks like Conor Benn did.
But does a smaller ring suit the bigger guy though? Because I feel like Conor is gonna fight. I feel like Conor is hungrier in this way, at least the way he's coming off, right? But does it suit the smaller guy? Wouldn't the smaller guy want a little bit of space? Does he want to get his hands on the bigger guy and make it that kind of physical fight?
He's been saying he has, and from what I read, it would look like that came from Benn's side to get the smaller ring. So maybe they're looking to catch the older legs of Chris Eubank Jr., making him stand his ground, making sure he can't use his length and his height and his reach advantage. Because Chris Eubank Jr. is a much bigger guy, taller, longer. It's yet to be seen what they're going to weigh on fight night in terms of how they're going to be in the ring. I don't think there's going to be that much of a difference in weight come fight night. Obviously, there's a difference in size and length. And Benn, in recent form, has been the more explosive guy when it comes to footwork, being able to go in and out. Eubank will stand his ground. He'll move a little bit, but he's much more of a boxer, athletic guy.
Works off his jab, too,
Works
right?
off his jab very well. So a little bit of space, being a taller guy. It seems to me that would
But you can also
favor
establish that distance with the jab. If you establish your jab, you establish a little bit of distance just on that alone. No matter what, at that point, no matter how much effort the other guy wants to put in, if you've got a sharp jab, you can establish distance on your own. Can Eubank do that?
Well, so when I fought Ruslan Provodnikov, I was in a very small ring. It was a sub 18-foot ring as well. I was the boxer, he was the puncher, and again, I didn't think he should come anywhere near me. I didn't realize that early on, and I got caught. I got caught in the first round because the ring was smaller than I expected, and he was able to close distance better than I expected. I got hit with a left hook. If that happens early on in this fight, does Eubank recover the way that I was able to that night? Who knows?
Yeah.
The
Against Smith, he didn't recover, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but the difficulty of as you said, winning the negotiation. Also, the other side of it. Let me ask Lance Pugmire about this. When you look at the fans, a great man once said, "Best parts of you came out of a bottle." This idea that once you're caught doping, there's the suspicion that that's where your success came from, and there's a little bit of a redemption angle in this fight. Is that how you see it, or is that as the fans might perceive it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been so diligent in trying to say that he's been a clean boxer, that this was, a result of tainted eggs or whatever it was. So, look, I think the proof is going to be in this performance. We know all is forgiven rather quickly if you can come back strong in the ring, especially having gone through the rigors of a doping program. So I think forgiveness is at hand for Conor Benn here, and if he can, produce the kind of showing that you guys think that maybe he's capable of, I think he's on his way. I mean, he's got a new manager in Keith Conley who has very strong plans for him. Obviously, I think part of that would be coming over here to the U.S. and expanding his brand, so to speak. So the world is really his. We know that Eubank is on the older side of things. I think this is ripe for Conor Benn to really embrace and become the fighter and have the career that he has really longed for.
Paulie, I want to ask you, what round or how early in the fight are these questions going to get answered? About round 3 or 4, what kind of fight we have in terms of, once again, ring size, once again, the legs of the older Eubank versus maybe the speed, but
I think right away, Conor's a guy who starts fast, fights pretty fast. I think he's going to try to get right to the heart of the matter quickly and see where Eubank's head is at, and I honestly don't blame him for that if that's his approach. I would expect it to be his approach, but we'll see. I don't think that him taking his time in boxing, especially on the with how impressive Eubank can start jabbing when he starts getting going. Like I saw in the Smith rematch, I was very surprised at how well Eubank used his jab. I don't think Conor would want Eubank to settle into any kind of rhythm, Plus, like we talked about Conor Benn's emotionally charged outlook and whatnot. I think it leads you to believe that he may start quickly and get to the heart of the matter quickly, as I said, and see where Eubank's head is at. Because Conor seems mentally ready for, quote unquote war. So he's going to say, okay, let's see where your head is at. Is your head at this place? And of course, a quick start does what? It makes the crowd explode. We know those UK boxing atmospheres, the crowd will explode, and that will charge everything up.
Where do you think the winner is set up in this fight, Chris? You talk about Paulie saying, I don't think either guy becomes a world champion, but the winner's certainly going to have a lot of hype behind them after a fight this size.
So, Chris Eubank Jr., he's been on the scene for a long time.
Yes.
At a world-class level, had world title fights, came up short. Champ, you mentioned yesterday, he has been the IBO world champion before. Not one of the most recognized titles that are out there. A win here for him, I don't think Chris Eubank is chasing titles anymore. Junior, that is. I don't think he's going out there to be a world champion. He's chasing money.
Well, the problem is, if you've never been a world champion, if you only chase money, doesn't it make you a little less appreciated in that way? I mean,
yeah.
How are you going to get the respect outside the UK?
To us, yeah.
You'll never get the appreciation outside the UK if you do that.
Chris
you got to at least win a world championship and then become bigger than the belt.
4 years has been going after the Canelo fight. So I think a win here.
Listen, I don't blame anybody for going after that kind of money.
Exactly.
But you still, in the back of your mind, have to realize, that there's, we talked to Erickson Lubin when he was here, that the fact that he's been at a high level and never won a world championship, it bothered him, there has to be an intercompetitive spirit to you,
Sure, but
otherwise, what are you doing this for?
When he does interviews, though, he doesn't talk about Carlos Adames. He doesn't talk about Janabek. He talks about Canelo. He talked about fighting Crawford a few years. Remember, Crawford was on the table a year ago. They were supposed to fight. And then Crawford, things went different ways. So I'm not sure. I mean, listen, maybe he still wants to be world champion, but I think the win here, I guess
I'm saying what I want him to be. I want him to be a guy who still wants to be world champion.
But that's what the hardcore fans want, is a guy that wants that.
I want you to have that first and foremost in your heart.
Here, he asked you what's going to happen.
Money's always great. Nobody's going to complain about it.
In the ring after this fight, if he wins, you don't think he's going to call Canelo?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah. So with a win with Conor, though, just like what Lance Pugmire was alluding to, with Benn.
What if Conor wins?
Well, that's what I said. So Benn wins. Benn, listen, he is young still. He's in his 20s. The carpet has been rolled out. And to Lance's point about, getting a clean bill of health in terms of the PED scandal, he gets a win here. Especially if he gets by knockout. Because one of the big knocks on him lately is that those last couple fights, he couldn't jokingly crack an egg. But
Where-
now he goes out there and he stops.
Where does
this
he
guy
go
160.
though? Where's the big names? There's no Canelos.
Question is, can he get back down to 147? You're jumping up 2 weight
even
classes.
at 147? He's not going to beat Ennis. So was he
You
going
go after Mario Barrios. You go after Brian Norman. Right,
Mario
maybe.
Barrios a winnable fight.
But it's an easy fight to make with Ennis.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I mean-
Eddie won't make that fight because Eddie that's Conor would be Eddie's cash cow, And now we're talking business here. That's why we get to the heart of the matter again. And from a sporting perspective, we think Ennis cleans house in that weight class. I don't think Eddie would sacrifice his
And
cash
Ben
cow,
wins
especially
the
the kind of cash cow Ben becomes
Yes.
if you beat Eubank right now.
And 54 is monstrous.
And
Like
54 is
54 is
a
monstrous.
whole different thing.
54 is
A whole different
54 is a lot of tough names without the big names.
Right.
Beating one of the guys in the top 5 at 54 is like a feat. So
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to touch 54 with a 10-foot pole, try and get back down to 47. But I think that Ben wins this fight. I bet you he calls out Boots.
Certainly a possibility.
Go ahead.
No. Certainly a possibility. But that's a tactical wipeout. Like,
Yeah.
Boots is that good.
Yeah. And I think the fact that Boots did it to Stanionis makes us realize, wow, this guy's way better than anybody we thought may have been close to him in the weight class. He becomes a scary figure. Boots is becoming sort of like the Golovkin was at his tenure as a championship run, where even though he was the guy, nobody wanted to go near him because he didn't generate enough money, enough big name status yet. And Golovkin became that, but Beterbiev became that, and Ennis has sort of become that in that way.
Well, when you talk about big names, talk about pound-for-pound kings right now in boxing, Lance Pugmire able to talk with the monster Naoya Inoue, of course, Cinco de Mayo against Ramon Cardenas, a fighter we know at Pro Box TV well. Lance, he seemed to understand the gravity of Cinco de Mayo in the United States, especially for boxing fans.
Absolutely. Naoya Inoue yesterday was very engaging in the conversation that he had with us. He spoke of watching, the Mexican legends of the past, Barrera, Marquez, Eric Morales, with his father, and he's seen all the great Cinco de Mayo fights of recent history with Canelo Alvarez and Floyd Mayweather and Oscar De La Hoya. So this means the world to him, and he senses his moment. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, Cardenas is not necessarily. He's not walking into the teeth of his schedule, but the teeth of his schedule is going to be following that when he has to deal with guys like MJ Ahmadallah and Juto Nakatani, and then perhaps a move to featherweight, perhaps a showdown with Bam Rodriguez. It's all there before him, and he realizes that, look, I'm starting this by headlining a Cinco de Mayo card in the U.S. in Las Vegas. This is a great start of where he is at the peak of his career right now.
The difficulty, of course, Chris, and we've seen it a million times. The start of something sounds great, but you got a tough fighter in front of you, a guy, Ramon Cardenas, proud Mexican fighter who's going to fight tough. This idea that, all I have to do is get past this guy. Yeah, but we've seen a lot of fighters stumble with that.
I remember Arturo Gatti saying this during his career when he was alive, rest in peace. He was like, hey, man, every guy who fights me, this is the fight of his life. He's fighting his best version. So in a way, he's living that. Every time he fights somebody, he's getting the best version of that guy. Ramon Cardenas is going to be the best version of Ramon that night, and he's going to bring his all. And he's got the Mexican pride behind him as well.
Works both ways. We saw that with Mike Tyson as well. It works both ways. It's your most motivated night, or if you have no balls, it could be your most freezing in the headlights night. We've seen some of that
how many
too.
Mexicans you met with no balls?
No, I'm not talking about Cardenas. I'm not talking about Cardenas.
Right.
The mindset can be,
general, yeah.
look at Mike Tyson. Some of Mike Tyson's fights. You saw some guys,
They were
got
looking
up
at a
for it.
cobra.
Shaking
like
their-
Razor Ruddock got up for it, but then you look at Carl the Truth Williams, who put up a great fight against Larry Holmes, and he put up an egg against Tyson.
Frank Bruno, crossing himself 50 times, right?
Guys standing in a
Guys are so nervous they don't even realize how nervous they look.
right, they're showing it.
But this idea, and I love that you brought that up, balls. If Cardenas has nothing else in this fight tactically for Naoya Inoue, he's got balls. He's the kind of
But
guy
he's
who walks
got
with-
tactics. I
He
think
does,
Cardenas
right.
has some good tactics. He's got a good trainer. Cardenas may not have one thing that you say like, oh wow, he can trouble in a way with that quality. May not be one, but the overall quality of Cardenas is solid. And he's got a solid corner, solid boxing IQ. Good weapons at his disposal. That he varies well. Let's see.
And also, last time out here, Pro Box TV against Acosta, that was in San Antonio, Texas. he got dropped in that fight late,
Warrior.
where a lot of guys would
And
go,
that can,
okay.
that can work against you or for you, right? You can say, well, if Acosta's hurting him like that, ain't no way he's going to walk through him. Or you can say the other side of it, which is, okay, he's battle tested. He, if Inoue may hurt him, but we know he responds.
Right,
We'll
but
see.
he didn't go into flight mode. He won the last couple rounds. He
was
made
smart.
the right
He was very-
adjustments.
He made a very good tactical
It
adjustment.
goes back to what the champ said. The Mexican fighters, right?
Yes.
Yep. Got
But
me.
also, he was smart. He didn't just pull his nuts up and go, all right, let's fight. He was calculated in the way he fought the rest of that fight, which we've seen him before. Whenever he's got an issue, like when he hurt his hand a couple fights ago, when he was behind a couple fights before that, like you see the gears start working, and he gets into his bag. He goes into his boxing IQ, and that makes him a very dangerous
and
guy.
Joel Diaz too, right?
Yes, Joel Diaz is
understanding him in the corner. They have a good rapport there as well.
great relationship with those two.
He's got balls. He's got great coaching. But he has the biggest fight of his career May 4th. Enjoy it this weekend, an all-UK showdown for the champs. Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi, Lance Pugmire, thank you so much for joining us. This has been Boxing Scene Today. Come to us for your boxing news. Find out why millions are watching.